we can connect to God through meditation, through prayers, or just have a good night of sleep, because in dreams, we can connect to our higher self. And then through our higher self, we can connect to God directly. And also, organized religions tend to serve their own interest than encourage people to be more spiritual. So in a sense, people need to be spiritual, but not religious.
I'm happy to have Samuel Chong with me today. Samuel, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm very happy to have you as my guest.
Yeah, thanks for having me here.
Samuel, you wanted to come and share a message with the world from a great book that you read. So tell me how you became interested in this book in the first place.
Well, I was very curious about everything. And in the last few years, we have seen so many things happening in the US and around the world. I wanted to bring people's awareness of the future, what we need to do to change our future for the better, because the US, as well as other countries, have become increasingly divided. We need to have certain knowledge in order to be become more knowledgeable about what's going to happen in the future. And I like to share messages in a book titled Theoba Prophecy. It's not a book of prophecy, but a book of friendly warnings from extraterrestrials who have been guiding us throughout history in the past. And I'm very happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you here. This is fascinating. So they're friendly warnings or messages from extraterrestrials. I can see how you would think that is a sci-fi book. That doesn't sound real.
I know, I am a Chinese translator and a certified court interpreter. So I work with a lot of doctors, lawyers, and business people. I have this kind of scientific mind and give me proof this kind of mentality. So when I first read a book, halfway into the book, I thought the messages could be true and could be a science fiction. But the more I read into that, the more I believe that everything written in the book is the true and actual experience of the author, who was a French Australian landscaper, who said that he was taken away by this group of highly advanced ETs to their planet, Thiuba, for 9 days and then came back. And he brought a lot of knowledge in which I was able to validate and verify. And this is a very interesting book encompassing a lot of the topics and issues that some people might find interesting. For example, where we all came from. Is there reincarnation? Who built the Great Pyramid of Egypt? And what happens in the Bermuda Triangle? What about the stories in the Bible? Like, who destroyed the two cities, Sodom and Gomorrah? Who parted the Sea of Reeds for Moses? And who gave the mannas to the Hebrews to eat in order for them to survive during their journey? And who resulted in Virgin Mary giving birth to Jesus? And who is Christ? And so these questions are very interesting questions, and this book gives very reasonable answers to the questions that I just mentioned. Oh, by the way, it also talks about why there's a tomb of Jesus in Japan, and why some people say that Jesus went to India, and also what happens when a person dies. Is there like reincarnation, and also what's the purpose of life?
So these are all very interesting questions, and I'd like to kind of dive a little deeper into some of them. And I think a lot of my audience is interested in this answer, the answer to this question. What happens when we die?
So when we die, our astral body or spiritual body leaves the physical body, and then it goes through a life review process. It reveals everything what happened in our lifetime. It's just like a holographic film playing everything that happened in our lifetime. And but the difference is that we are able to experience and feel how the others felt when we did certain things onto the others. For example, if I hit a person, that I would be able to feel how that person felt when I hit him or her. So it's just like this kind of holographic experience that we would be able to play back, and we would be able to see how we did in the lifetime and evaluate ourselves. No one is going to judge us but ourselves. We are going to evaluate what we did correctly and what we did incorrectly, and what kind of things we should improve in our next lifetime. So after this life reveal process, then the astral body will, at that time, is joined with the higher self. When it decides to kind of go into another lifetime, it actually previews the major events that's going to happen in the lifetime. And then you're able to decide whether to go or not. You're able to choose the family that you're going to be born in. And then when the decision is made, then you go into the embryo of the womb of the mother. When the astral body goes into the embryo, it has to pass through what the ancient Nagas would call the river of oblivion, forgetting everything that happened in the past lives. So this is why most people don't remember their past lives, but some people do, such as the research done by the doctors like Dr. Ian Stevenson. He documented people who have past life memories. Some people do have past life memories. So this is the concept of reincarnation. The purpose of doing that is to accumulate spiritual lessons, because the sole purpose of us living on earth is to learn spiritual lessons. So in each lifetime, we learn different spiritual lessons. And according to this book, Theoba Prophecy, the author Michel Desmarquet was able to see his past lives. The extraterrestrials actually helped him to go to his past lives and to see what kind of roles he played in his past lives. For example, like once he was a German miner who accidentally killed his wife, leaving many children behind him. And then once he was a goldsmith in Japan, a few times he was a beggar on streets. And then like a water carrier in India, or a queen ruling an entire nation on different planet. So he had so many roles in different past lives. And according to the ETs, the different roles that we play in our past lives are just like different positions on a wheel. What goes up has to come down. So we learn different spiritual lessons in each of our past lives. So we keep refining ourselves spiritually and then move up the ladder.
What is the connection between extraterrestrials and spirituality, or even the afterlife? How do they know all this?
Well, according to them, the universe has different categories of planets. So we are actually living on category 1 planet, the lowest level in the universe. And they, the Theubans or Giovans, they live on category 9 planet. So they're more spiritually advanced, and they're more physically advanced as well. So actually, when Michel Desmarquet, the author, arrived on their planet, he discovered that all the people appeared in their 30s. They never age. They can live forever because they can regenerate their body tissues and cells. So they're physically more advanced, and they are able actually to perform all the miracles that's performed by Christ, as described in the Bible. They communicate with Michel Desmarquet through telepathy. They can materialize objects. They can heal all the wounds or diseases you can think of, and they can disappear at will, just like Christ did. And they actually are far more advanced, that they are trying to send us messages, trying to show us that we need to change our ways of living. Otherwise, we're going to be heading a catastrophe.
Are they actual solid physical beings, or are they more interdimensional?
They're actually solid physical beings, but they sometimes disappear unintentionally, because they can join and rejoin the great ether or the great spirit, which is the creator of everything, the creator of the universe, according to this book.
How do we know that this isn't a sci-fi book? How can we tell that this is the truth?
Yes, there are so many specific details in the book that I was able to verify after I read it. For example, there's the description of how the author was disinfected after he entered into their spacecraft. They used yellow light and blue light to disinfect him. And according to a research paper by Harvard Medical School, certain wavelengths of blue light have antibacterial, antiviral effects. So, but that paper was published after this book was published. This book was published in 1983, and that research paper by the Harvard Medical School was published in the 2000s. And also, just a few years ago, there was another paper that showed that certain wavelengths of yellow light also have antibacterial effects, just a few years ago. And also, what really got me into this book is the description of how Jesus was born from Virgin Mary, traveled to India. And this is why some people say that Jesus went to India and died in Japan. And this is why there's a tomb of Jesus in Japan, in Shingo Village, Japan. And people can just look up on the internet and do a search, and they're able to find the descriptions by mainstream media or by a lot of the journalists talking about the tomb of Jesus in Japan. And Christ, according to this book, is a different entity. So Jesus and Christ are two separate entities according to this book. Jesus, the one born out of Virgin Mary, couldn't perform miracles. And that's the one who had a very profound conversation with the teacher of the temple because he was highly spiritual. Christ, on the other hand, is one of the ETs who actually made a body that resembled the appearance of Jesus. And then one of the ETs entered into that body made by them and then began preaching. Because this way, Christ could perform miracles because he remembered everything, the knowledge to perform miracles. And they did this because people in the past, as well as people nowadays, are highly skeptical. They just don't believe the teachings of just anyone. Someone had to perform miracles in order for his teachings to be believed. So this is why they had to send someone who could perform miracles in order for the teachings of Christ to be believed. And Christ actually died on the cross and then resurrected 3 days after, just to show people at that time that there is life after death and there is reincarnation. But for some reason, the concept of reincarnation was later removed from the Bible.
When we die or during our lifetime, are we striving to move up to this level 9 planet where we can live with these extraterrestrials?
That's what Michel Desmarquet wanted, because on the planet Theoba, everything was so perfect. It's just like a paradise. He felt great compassion and love from the ETs. And the ETs are very beautiful too. They're 9 or 10 foot tall. They're blonde. They're sexy. They look very sexy, but they're hermaphrodites, meaning that they have both male and female sexual organs. And we are either male or female for most of us. And so he didn't want to come back. So his goal was actually to live with them. He didn't know that they would send him back here. I mean, he didn't want to come back to Earth. So when I met him twice, he always said that he wanted to go back. He wanted to live among the Theobans or the ETs because everything was just so perfect.
Is that what we're striving for? Is that what we've evolve into eventually?
Eventually, yes, but we have to go step by step, refining ourselves spiritually. We cannot just jump from level 1 to level 9 unless we have this kind of self-realization, just like the Buddha did. But for most of us, we have to move up from from category 1 to category 2, and then we can just refine ourselves in the process. And this is also why, in the Old Testament, in the Bible, it says that people in the past lived 800 years or 900 years. So there's a reason for that, because the ancient Hebrews originally came from a category 3 planet. about 12,000 years ago, according to this book. So they had more longevity. They lived longer lives than us, the rest of the people on Earth. But as time goes, they kind of didn't like because of the environment or for some other reasons, the longevity was reduced gradually.
What are some of the warnings that these ETs have for us here on Earth?
Well, they say that the real dangers on Earth are number one, money, number two, politicians, number three, journalists and drugs, number four, religions. So number one is money. We all know that everything revolves around money. The pharmaceutical industry, the energy industry, even the education industry, they're all revolved around money. So some inventions get suppressed, like the invention of Stanley Meyer in the 1970s, who invented a water-based vehicle, a car that ran on water. And before he was able to commercialize it, he mysteriously died of a very mysterious illness, uh, and um, and also pharmaceutical industry, as we all know, like there are effective ways of treating a disease, but it's not for the interest of their shareholders who to promote those effective and inexpensive ways of treating different diseases because they cannot be patented, and also the education industry is the same thing. Um, Number two is politicians. We all know that the politicians only focus on their personal fame and also monetary gains or re-elections. They don't necessarily put the interests of the people to the most important place in their lives, and and it's very interesting that this book talks about the political structures of the ancient civilizations that existed on Earth in the past, and is I wouldn't go into details, but I would encourage people to read the book to find out more. Um, and number three is journalists and drugs. Journalists, because they report on the sensational news, and they um, know that negative news sells. Like so, they report on crimes and a lot of the bad things that happen in society. What happens is that the consequences is that a lot of the people would try to imitate the actions of the criminals. So it goes into a vicious cycle. So instead, the reporters or journalists should report on the positive news, the news that would increase people's psyche, like the good deeds of the people, people who are compassionate, people who help others, so that the readers would follow their actions and also feel more positive in life. And drugs, what the author meant that is the hallucinogenic drugs. Um, it says that the hallucinogenic drugs damage the astral body of a person. Remember, the astral body is composed of electrons. And I kind of verify the information by asking our readers, people who can see ghosts or human energy fields, just to tell me like what they see the differences is between the people who use hallucinogenic drugs versus people who don't. And they tell me that people who use those kind of drugs tend to have more ugly auras. The auras are more distorted, and their auras don't look that beautiful compared to the people who don't use hallucinogenic drugs. Number four is religions. Religions is actually a curse on earth because we can connect to God or the Creator directly, and we don't need an organized religion to act as an intermediary agency or to represent us or represent God to us. We can connect to God through meditation, through prayers, or just have a good night of sleep, because in dreams, we can connect to our higher self. And then through our higher self, we can connect to God directly. And also, organized religions tend to serve their own interest than encourage people to be more spiritual. So in a sense, people need to be spiritual, but not religious.
They also gave a message about technology and the way that we should be using technology. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Yes, technology is actually making people more into using, for example, cell phones or leading people into this kind of more materialistic world. Remember, the purpose of living here is to increase our spirituality and not to be dwelt on the materialistic world. And technology is making us more focused on making money or be more materialistic in a sense, enslaving us in this kind of temporary like monetary system. So they are saying that we should use technology to increase our spiritual development. For example, developing like an aura camera, or to increase our kind of effectiveness of meditation. So they're encouraging us to focus more on our spiritual development, not on in this kind of financial system or materialistic world.
They said the Great Spirit created basically the universe through cosmic rays.
Yes, a lot of people ask like, who came first, chicken or egg? It's neither, it's the cosmic rays. What happens is that according to this book, I strongly encourage people to read the book. It says that when the Great Spirit wanted to experience in a physical world, it imagined everything. Once it is ready, a big bang occurred. So explosion occurred. So this Great Spirit created stars, planets, animals, plants, and human beings on Earth and other planets. So when it created human beings, it inserted a tiny portion of itself to each one of us. So we are part of God, the creator, and God is part of us. So it used 4 different forces to create everything that I just mentioned. And human beings are unique because human beings have a sparkle of God or a sparkle of divinity. And so God can experience everything we experience through our physical body. So when we have sorrowness or happiness, we send a feedback to God through our higher self. So it actually created everything using the different forces, the 4 different forces. And the last force is actually the cosmic rays.
So, why does God want to experience the things that humans experience, like suffering or sorrow or pain?
Yeah, because God is a pure spirit and it doesn't have any physical body. So it has to experience through our physical bodies. And also, when we have happiness, and we wouldn't have happiness if we don't have sorrowness. So there has to be like a comparison of the two. So God really wants to experience everything through us. Um, so we just have to have this kind of all the different tastes of life in order to learn the spiritual lessons. And if we just have all the happiness in life, then we wouldn't learn as much compared to if we have both happiness and also challenges in life. I see the challenges as mathematical problems to respond to. The more challenging the math problem is, the more I can learn by solving that problem, by responding to the challenges. So I welcome challenges in life because I want to learn more spiritually.
The ETs tell us a lot about our planet as well, such as, and you touched on this earlier, um, about the pyramids. Who built the pyramids and what purpose are they made for?
Well, according to the ETs, there were ancient civilizations that existed on Earth. For example, in the Pacific Ocean, there existed a continent called Lemuria. About 250,000 years ago, when they lived on the continent. And Lemuria is actually part of what's now today's Hawaii Islands or Easter Island, where you see the statues of moas, the big stones statues. And people wonder who built the moas. Is the same group of people who lived on the continent of Lemuria. And then they also colonized another continent called Atlantis in the Atlantic Ocean. So back about 30,000 years ago, there was a very wise and learned person from Atlantis who went to Egypt. And that person is called Thoth, was now people believe to be the Egyptian god. He was a human being, but he had the knowledge to build the Great Pyramid of Egypt. So he was able to align the stones in a perfect manner so that the pyramid can be used as a as a tool to capture cosmic and terrestrial energies. It's actually an energy center. And he built a Great Pyramid using anti-gravitational technologies and also ultrasound systems to cut the huge stones in a very precise manner. And the users of the Great Pyramid sat in the center, the king's chamber, and then meditated, and then sent their energy or thoughts through the center, through the top of the pyramid, so that they could communicate to people on different planets. They also use the Great Pyramid to make rain using a metal alloy made of aluminum, silver, and other metals. So this is according to this book. And I find it interesting because modern engineers and scientists, such as Christopher Dunn, has this kind of hypothesis or theory that the Great Pyramid of Egypt is actually an energy center based on his research and analysis.
What's going on with the Bermuda Triangle?
The Bermuda Triangle is actually a natural phenomenon of a warp or a portal that connects our world to a parallel universe. I say this because when I was young, I read a lot of stories of ships and planes that just gone vanished in the Bermuda Triangle area. And also, modernly, there is a very well-known private investigator called David Paulides, who documented a lot of the strange cases in which people just gone vanished in national parks in the US and Canada. What happens is that people just disappear out of thin air. And then when they sent dogs to trace the scents of the people who went missing, the dogs couldn't smell anything at a certain point. So they stopped in the middle of nowhere. And then the rescue teams would search and search different locations. And then sometimes the bodies or the corpse would occur in places that they searched previously, many times previously. It's very strange, like very eerie. And sometimes when the corpse are found, they find that the person who died didn't feel any pain because he or she walked to their bones. So the bones actually came out because of the walking. And this coincides or corroborates with the description in this book describing the parallel universe in which Michel Desmarquet actually entered into. According to the ETs, inside of a parallel universe, which is a natural phenomenon, people don't feel any hunger, thirst, or pain. Time stops. And actually, Michel saw a lot of people wearing medieval clothes in the parallel universe. And then the ETs used the parallel universe as a transfer station or as a transit stop so that people on Earth wouldn't be able to see them or see their spacecraft. And this is why a lot of observers see UFOs or UAPs appear from the sky out of nowhere, because actually they enter and exit through the portals of parallel universe. And there are a lot of locations on Earth in which the portals exist. And the book describes some of the other interesting stories in a parallel universe.
What about Atlantis the legend of Atlantis. What did the aliens, or I guess, would you call them aliens?
Well, I would say there are ETs who have been guiding us throughout history in the past, but there are also people who lived on Earth, but they were actually originally from different planets as well. So this book actually tells where all the people came from. Like on Atlantis, um, there lived a group of Caucasian people, but they were actually colonized by the people on Lemuria, on the continent of Mu. Um, and then, but before the Caucasians or the Lemurians, there were also blacks and yellows on different parts of the world. And actually, we all came from different planets. And the yellows and the blacks came from a planet about 1.35 million years ago. And the Lemurians came about 250,000 years ago. And the Caucasians came later. And the Hebrews came the latest, about 12,000 years ago.
The Atlanteans, did they have special gifts that they brought over with them or tools?
Well, according to this book, the Caucasians on Atlantis, they didn't like the rules or the governance of the Lemurians, so they kind of moved to Northern Europe, and then the because of natural disasters and things like that, the civilization didn't really excel for the Caucasians, and the technologies on Atlantis actually came from Lemuria. And this is the reason why some people say there were advanced technologies on Atlantis, but they actually came from Lemuria, the continent in the Pacific Ocean. There they had a like a very large pyramid that's 3 times as large as a pyramid in Egypt, and they also lived harmoniously with each other, and they didn't have money at all. People just grabbed everything they needed from the marketplace. No one took advantage of each other, and they have nuclear technologies to light the light bulbs, and there are different races of people on the continent: the blacks, the yellows, the Caucasians, and also Polynesians. And so they actually ruled over Atlantis and brought some of their technologies to Atlantis. But unfortunately, 14,500 years or 14,500 years ago, Lemuria sunk into the ocean, and soon after, Atlantis also sunk into the ocean. Some of the records existed in Egypt regarding Atlantis in the Library of Alexandria, but unfortunately, when that library was burned, a lot of the knowledge was lost. So we can only learn about Atlantis through the works of Plato nowadays. But there are some interesting texts in India and other parts of the world, about Lemuria. So that's something that people can investigate.
And they also told us a lot about the history of the earth itself, such as the Great Deluge.
So we had at least 2 major civilization resets. The first great reset occurred about 1.32 million years ago, when an asteroid split into 3 parts and then hit Earth. The first part hit what's now today's Red Sea area. The second part hit what's now today's East Timor area. And the third part hit what's now today's Galapagos Islands area, like in the Galapagos Islands west of Ecuador. And because of the impacts of the 3 asteroids, like small parts of the asteroids, there was a great deluge or turmoil on Earth. It actually wiped out the entire civilization on Earth. And only like some people remained or survived, but they didn't have the technologies from before. They didn't have the knowledge from before. So that's the first great reset. The second great reset occurred 14,500 years ago when Lemuria sunk into the ocean. the Lemurians had these advanced technologies brought uh, like from their own planet, but it didn't allow other people, like people in India or China, to learn about their secrets. So they kept their technologies to themselves. So when that continent sunk into the ocean, um, their technologies were lost. So were the technologies on Atlantis. So this is the other great reset that occurred. And when the two great resets occurred, there was a great deluge that people mentioned.
Why are we being reset? Why does God do that? Is there a purpose?
Well, there were accidents that occur throughout history. For example, the first Great Reset was caused by an accident. There was an asteroid which just happened to hit Earth, and the second Great Reset is caused by geographical change or Earth change. There is a like gaseous belt beneath the continent of Lemuria. So when there were volcanic activities or earthquake, the gaseous belts, kind of the gases were released from beneath, causing a lot of fire or a lot of destruction. So that's actually another accident that occurred.
The ET shared some of the universal truths and laws with Michel. Can you share some of those?
One of the most interesting one is about karma. So what you did to another person will come back to you. Like sometimes it doesn't come back right away. Maybe in a few generations time, or maybe after a few lifetimes, it'll always come back. So this is the universal law of cause and effect. And the other universal law is that we should follow nature as closely as possible. I find that to be fascinating because a lot of the modern issues or problems that we confront or face nowadays all come from artificial or man-made products. For example, the candies. If you ask dentists, they'll say like the artificial sugars or sweeteners or candies will cause teeth decay or tooth decay. And that's true because the structure of artificial sugar um, is very different from natural sugar. So natural sugar doesn't cause like tooth decay, but artificial sugar does. And also, we think that we can solve the different issues or by treating different diseases using like pharmaceutical drugs. But we also need to realize that liver will have to detox the drugs first before the drugs enter into the bloodstream. So it actually causes more issues on the human body than some of the natural solutions. So we should follow nature as closely as possible by eating raw food or natural foods in order to be more healthy. And a lot of the artificially made solutions are actually causing more problems than solutions.
So, why don't our ET friends come and just save us from all of the harm that we're doing to our planet and to ourselves?
I'll give you an analogy. Like when you are trying to teach your son or daughter a mathematical problem, you wouldn't just give the answers to him or her directly. Otherwise, he or she wouldn't learn anything from the process. So the more you directly give the answers to your children, the less they learn. So in order to learn more, we have to go through this process on our own. They have been guiding us throughout history, but sometimes indirectly, and occasionally directly. Um, and I'll give you another like analogy. There's a biologist in Mexico who saw like a butterfly trying to come out of a cocoon. and it is struggling very hard. Out of like a kind heart or compassion, he opened the cocoon up so that the butterfly could come out. The butterfly did come out, but it couldn't fly. It turns out that the butterfly has to go through this kind of struggling process in order to be able to fly. So similarly, we people on Earth have to go through this kind of struggling process in order to survive on Earth for the long term. But having said that, the ETs did help us in the past. For example, they were responsible for the destruction of the two cities, Sodom and Gomorrah, because the cities, the people in the two cities, they were punishing people who were compassionate. So it's not just about sodomy. If you look at Jewish texts, if you look at the original text about the two cities, it describes how evil the people in the two cities were. They kind of like tortured the girl to death because the girl helped the beggar on street by giving the beggar food. So this is what the people did in the two cities. So the Theubans, the ETs, they destroyed the two cities, just like a surgeon taking out malignant tumors from our body, preventing the tumors from spreading to the rest of our muscles or body. So this is like one way that they helped us directly. They also helped directly by having Jesus born out of Virgin Mary, so that people would pay attention to this kind of extraordinary event, and also to fulfill the prophecy. And the young Jesus actually was highly spiritual, having a very profound conversation with the teachers of the temple. And then he traveled to India and died in Japan. So this is why there's a tomb of Jesus in Japan. But Christ, on the other hand, is one of the ETs who taught about spirituality and love. And this is another like direct intervention by the ETs. They also prevented Germany from being the first country to develop the atomic bomb during World War II, so that less people would be killed during the wars. And I found that to be interesting because I did some research. It turns out that there is a German scientist called Dr. Heisenberg, and people can look it up. He was far more advanced in developing an atomic bomb than American scientists at that time. But for some strange reason, he made a very stupid mistake that he shouldn't have made. And Hitler read a report that he wrote and decided that to give up the plan of making an atomic bomb, because Germany, according to that report, didn't have that many like resources, natural resources to make the bomb. But actually Germany had that resource to make the bomb. It's because of the report of Dr. Heisenberg that Germany didn't make the atomic bomb during World War II.
Why do they care at all about us? Are we related in some way?
Well, according to them, they are related to us in a sense that we are all created by the Creator. So even though they're ETs, they're also part of the creation of the great ether or the Creator. So in that sense, we are related. Another way of looking at this is that we are just like elementary school students learning the basics, and they're like college professors guiding us and mentoring us so that we can really walk on the right path of developing our spirituality. So they have been kind of like a hidden hand, giving us like directions or general principles of life. They not only had Michel Desmarquet to go with them to their planet and write this book, they also had Enoch to go with them as well. So this is why when Michel came back from the planet Thuba, and he learned about the Book of Enoch, and after he read the Book of Enoch, he was really surprised because a lot of the descriptions in the Book of Enoch are very similar to what he personally witnessed, and he believed that Enoch was taken away by the same group of ETs as he did.
Why did they choose Michel, or how did Michel make contact with them in the first place?
Well, it occurred in 1987 in the middle of the night, and he suddenly woke up. He didn't know why, but he wrote a note. It's just like a reflective actions or for some strange reasons, he wrote a note to his wife saying that he'll be gone for 10 days and there is absolutely no need to worry about him. And then he walked outside of his house. He was lifted up to the mid of the air, where he saw this beautiful, narrow 10-foot tall, sexy, blonde ET who said that they were going to go on a journey together and will be safely sent back home. They chose Michel Desmarquet because, according to the ETs, he had 80 past lives already, and only people like him could survive for 9 days on their planet. And I don't know the reason. It probably has something to do with the vibrations. And also because Michel is a man of action. He didn't wait. I mean, the 2 times I met with him, I can tell that he acted immediately when he was determined to do something. And the other reason is that he was a landscaper, like a farmer, who had no knowledge about ETs or UFOs or UAPs in the past. He was just like a blank piece of paper to write on. He didn't have any preconceived notions or presuppositions about the ETs or UFOs, unlike some of the other people that we know who have their own agenda.
Is there a way that if people are interested in communicating with these ETs, that they can also reach them?
Well, after Michel came back, he wanted to go back to the planet Thuba because I mentioned it's just like a paradise. Everything's so perfect. It's very beautiful and the colors are so vivid, like lively. And so he wanted to go back. So he tried to have communications with the ETs from Thuba, but he couldn't. I mean, his mission was to write a book and to report everything he saw and experienced. And he wasn't able to have direct or two-way communications with the ETs after he came back. Occasionally, he would receive telepathic messages from the ETs. And actually, when he was with them, most of the communications were done telepathically. But he even he had a little bit difficulty of reconnecting with the ETs from Thuba. I don't know how others would be able to communicate with them.
Why are you trying to spread the word or get the word of the book out there, get people to read the book? Why do you care?
Because I learned about that one thing that Michel knew but didn't write in the book. He wasn't allowed to write that one thing in the book according to the postscript. So I was fascinated by the book, and I couldn't put the book down. In the postscript, it said there are far more incredible things that Michel knew but wasn't allowed to write in the book. I was determined to find out why and what that is. So I flew to Vietnam and met him, and after certain interesting encounters, and he didn't tell me during my first trip, but then after I helped him to get a book published in China and Taiwan, where it became a bestseller, he invited me to visit him for the second time, so that he could tell me that one thing in person. But he told me that Tao, the ET, told him not to tell anyone else and to let me know that to keep it a secret. So I have to keep my word. But what it didn't say was I couldn't write an article revealing as many clues as possible about it. And that's what I did. So I wrote an article giving as many hints as possible. And the title of, of that article is The Second Coming of Jesus Christ.
Can you share some of those hints with us today?
I can say that a lot of the descriptions in the Bible are accurate. And in terms of the time, place, manner, and you can just read my article, and I referenced a lot of the verses in the Bible with my own personal experience and knowledge. And if you read between the lines, you're able to know approximately what that is about. It's very interesting, and also what you need to do to be prepared. That's the most important thing. Like that event might happen in the future, but if you don't know what to prepare for it, then it'll be useless. That article tells you what you need to do to be prepared.
To be prepared for the second coming of Jesus?
Yes, and actually it's just to follow the teachings of Christ, to make it simple. Be compassionate and love each other and have spiritual knowledge and seek God on your own and be spiritual. Like you don't need a religion, organized religion to seek God. You can just seek God on your own, but you should be compassionate to your neighbors and you love your enemies and yeah, things like that.
Samuel, if my viewers wanted to reach out to you, if they have more questions, how can they find you?
They can find me on Facebook or just by search my name on the search engines or Facebook. And but I would encourage people to read the book because what I've just said covers only about 9% of the book. There are a lot of incredible things or details that can benefit the readers, practical information, practical knowledge, or tips or tricks that can benefit your personal life or professional life. And I think this book is a treasure. It's a must read for people who want to elevate themselves.
If you had one message that you want the audience to take away from this conversation, what would it be?
Look inside for answers, for the kingdom of God is within you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Samuel, for being my guest. This has been a great honor. I've learned a lot from you. I appreciate you taking the time to come and share.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for being here. I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you being here and supporting my channel. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider subscribing if you enjoy near-death experiences and other spiritually transformative stories. It helps the algorithm know that this information is useful and push it out to more people. And that's the goal, to get as many people to know that we are eternal spiritual beings and that we never die. Our bodies might die, but our essence will never die. And I want people to live with less fear. Let's all spread the word. Like, comment, subscribe, share, hit that little notification bell so you get all the notifications when my videos post. Thank you for all of your support. I'm sending love to you.